Discovered, the inspiring story of a maid who changed everything after a millionaire's bet. In the bustling town of Glenwood, Emily's story begins before the sun even rises. The air is thick with the scent of morning dew as she scrubs floors, her worn hands racing over the polished wood. She dreams of a world beyond the grand halls she cleans, a life filled with promise for her daughter, Lily. 6 years old, bright-eyed, and bursting with potential, Lily deserves more than the struggles Emily faced alone. Each scrub felt like an anchor pulling her deeper into the social divide that stifled her dreams. On one sweltering summer afternoon, while dusting the elegant mantelpiece in the Anderson mansion, Emily overheard John Carter, the notoriously ruthless billionaire, boasting about his latest bet. "I can turn any ordinary person into a success in just 1 year." His laughter echoed through the living room. Something sparked in Emily's heart. Could she be the one to prove him wrong? Her head spun with possibilities. She envisioned not just a brighter future for Lily, but for all the overlooked souls fighting their own battles in Glenwood. Emily decided, right then and there, to take on that challenge. The weight of her decision sat heavy on her shoulders, but hope bubbled beneath the surface. She couldn't let fear or doubt hold her back any longer. That night, she cradled Lily in her arms, humming soft lullabies, envisioning their life changing. She could feel it, a deep, pulsing desire to lift her family, to shatter the chains of their circumstances. However, stepping into this new world was no easy task. The elite, with their polished smiles, scoffed at her ambition. "Just a maid," they whispered. Their icy disdain pierced through her heart. Emily found herself wrestling with the shame of her past, heightened by the nagging worry over her estranged mother. The pain of their strained relationship loomed over her like a dark cloud. But Emily was determined. Connecting with local veterans and community leaders, she found camaraderie with those who understood sacrifice and dreams deferred. It was exhilarating. She harnessed every ounce of that collective grit, igniting a fire in her spirit. Yet, betrayal threatened to snuff out that flame. A trusted ally turned cold, and she stood on the precipice of despair, grappling with all the fears of inadequacy that had followed her for so long. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fueled by the battered hope that rose within her, Emily took a stand, imploring her community to recognize their dignity. She rallied everyone, standing tall as she spoke out against the social injustices tearing at Glenwood's seams. Her spirit ignited change, and slowly, the community began to swell with unity beside her. Then came a moment that would define everything, an encounter with John Carter that would challenge not just her dreams but everything she stood for. Would she rise up and seize this opportunity, or would the threads of her aspirations unravel before her very eyes? As the town buzzed with eager anticipation, Emily knew this was just the beginning of her relentless fight for hope and for Lily's future. Days turned into weeks, and the buzz around Emily grew louder. Each day, she stood before her neighbors in the community center, her voice steady despite the tremor of doubt lingering in her heart. Eager faces stared back at her, seeking inspiration, seeking hope. Each meeting felt electric, filled with the promise of change. They began to recognize their own strength through her words, and a collective dream started to blossom. Yet, lingering shadows crept in at night when she was alone, wrestling with fears that threatened to consume her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold, Emily received an invitation she had not expected: a formal dinner at John Carter's mansion. Her pulse quickened at the thought of stepping into the world that had always loomed so far above her. A chance to confront the man whose words had sparked her fire. But then dread followed closely behind. What if she faltered? What if she didn't belong there? With a deep breath, she accepted. She spent hours crafting her presentation, her words carefully chosen to convey the reality of their struggles without the aid of fancy tricks or embellishments. She would speak from her heart, bare and honest. That night, she practiced in front of the mirror, her reflection studying her closely. "You are more than just a maid, Emily," she whispered to herself. "You are a voice for the voiceless." The day of the dinner arrived, and as she walked up the grand path to the Carter estate, her heart pounded louder than ever. The mansion loomed above her, casting long shadows that mirrored her anxiety. She straightened her spine and smoothed down her dress, feeling the fabric cling to her like armor. Inside, the opulence took her breath away. Crystal chandeliers gleamed, and the scent of fine cuisine perfumed the air. Guests mingled, laughter ringing like music, but Emily felt like an outsider. Still, she was here to make her case, to let her dreams intertwine with the very elites who had looked down on her. When John Carter finally approached her, he was every bit the tycoon, confident, charismatic, and exuding an aura of control. Emily felt a jolt when his eyes met hers, a mixture of thrill and intimidation. "So, you're the ambitious maid I've heard so much about," he said, an amused smirk touching his lips. "And you're the man who thought a bet could change lives," she retorted, discovering a surprising strength in her voice. She could feel the eyes of his guests drift toward them, their curiosity piqued by the confrontation. His brow arched, surprised. For a moment, silence stretched thin between them, but Emily stood firm. She launched into her tale, recounting the dreams of her community, her hopes for Lily, and the collective burdens that stifled them. As she spoke, the room gradually quieted. She watched as their expressions shifted from skepticism to intrigue. "You really believe you can change Glenwood?" John finally asked, a challenge dripping from his words. "I don't just believe it. I know it," she replied. "But I can't do it alone. I need your help." His expression darkened, clouds of doubt swirling behind his eyes. "You think I'd invest in a Maid's dream? Why not?" Emily challenged, emboldened by the tide of voices in her heart. "What if I told you that your bet could hold the power to change lives?" Just then, a gasp rippled through the crowd. Their reactions hung heavy in the air like a promise. Had she crossed a line, or planted a seed of doubt in their titan? As she locked eyes with John, she caught a glimmer of something. Was it intrigue, or just amusement? The stakes rose higher than ever, and Emily felt the weight of those watching. The path ahead was murkier than she'd imagined. Would this gamble bring about the change she so desperately sought, or would it shatter everything she worked for? As the tension deepened, a sudden thought struck her. What if John had a secret of his own, something that could upend their power dynamic? The room felt charged with unspoken truths, and Emily knew one thing: everything was about to change, but would she be ready for it? Just as the air thickened with tension, Emily was startled by the sound of breaking glass. A champagne flute slipped from a guest's grip, shattering on the marble floor. A ripple of laughter erupted, cutting through the weight of the moment. Emily watched as John's smirk faltered for just a second, his control cracking. But he quickly regained his composure, turning the situation into an opportunity to flaunt his charm. "Seems even the glasses can't handle the excitement," he said, forcing a chuckle. Yet, beneath that polished surface, there was something else: an uncertainty. How could this maid, standing before a crowd of elites, stir such a reaction within him? Emily hesitated. She had captured their attention, but now she sensed an opportunity slipping through her fingers. It was time to lean into the momentum she had begun to build. She stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "Change is uncomfortable. It's messy and often chaotic, like this evening." She gestured toward the broken shards on the floor. "But that doesn't mean we shouldn't embrace it." She could see John's jaw tense. The humor evaporated. "And what makes you think I should risk my reputation on a gamble like this?" His tone was sharper now, a hint of defensiveness lacing his words. "Because real change can only happen when powerful people are willing to get involved," she responded, her heart hammering in her chest. "I'm not asking for charity, I'm asking for a partnership. Imagine if we combined your resources with our vision. We can create something meaningful. He studied her, eyes narrowing, and she caught the slight flutter of doubt again. This moment felt raw and vulnerable. This was not just about her hopes anymore, this was a plea to awaken empathy in a man who had lived behind walls of privilege. Did he have even an inkling of the life she led? Or was she just another pawn in his grander game? Silence fell over the room. The guests exchanged nervous glances. Emily could feel their collective breath caught in their throats, waiting for John's response. This moment felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room, propelling her words forward. I have seen what has become of Glenwood. The struggle that hangs heavy over my community, she continued, voice rising passionately. For once, let us not lock ourselves away in our mansions. Let us reach out and be a part of something larger than ourselves. Let us shake the foundations of a broken system together. John's expression shifted. He hesitated, the storm behind his eyes revealing an unexpected vulnerability. It's a big ask, Emily. Not everyone will welcome it. I didn't come here for popularity, she shot back. I came to make a difference. And sometimes, to do that, we have to ruffle a few feathers. Some guests were nodding now, others whispered amongst themselves. Emily felt their energy shift, as if a current ran through the room, binding their collective hope. She was winning them over, then, just when she thought she might break through, an unexpected voice chimed in from the back of the room, carrying a tone of skepticism. But Emily, what do you really know about business? Are you sure you can back up your words? Her heart sank for a moment, stinging from the weight of doubt pressing back on her. But she steadied herself, this wasn't the time to fold. I may not know everything about business, but I understand the cost of doing nothing. I live it every day. I'm willing to learn and to fight. Are you? John met her gaze again, his expression inscrutable, yet something flickered behind it, a challenge. Prove it. Help me understand why this matters so much to you. In that moment, the stakes soared higher, and Emily knew she was on the precipice of something monumental. Could she turn this pivotal night into the future she had envisioned? With a determination she hadn't known she possessed, she took a deep breath and whispered, "Then let me tell you my story and show you the heart of Glenwood." The air crackled with anticipation. The room leaned in, hungry for more. What was she about to reveal? Would her past, intertwined with the fate of her community, be enough to turn the tide? Every pulse quickened as Emily prepared to unveil the truth that had driven her all along. But would it be enough to change John's mind and through him, the world? Emily felt the heat of a million eyes upon her, piercing through to the very core of her being. She took a breath, steadying her racing heart. This was her moment. The chatter around her faded into a hushed whisper, like a fading tide in a bustling sea. I grew up in Glenwood, she began, her voice echoing through the marble hall, charged with emotion. It wasn't a fairy tale. My mom worked 2 jobs just to keep food on our table. We didn't have the luxury of choices. We had to fight for every little thing. She paused, the memories flooding her mind like a tidal wave. The faces before her began to shift from skeptics to listeners, their expressions softening as she continued. When I was 16, my brother was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was a neighborhood filled with people who lost hope. That night changed everything for my family. She swallowed hard, the weight of the past heavy on her chest. He didn't survive. The police called it a mistake, but to us, it wasn't just a bad luck story, it was a wake-up call. Gasps rippled through the audience, caught in the emotional gravity of her words. That tragedy shook our community. But it also ignited a fire within me, she said, her voice rising with passion. I promised myself I wouldn't let his memory slip away without doing something. I began volunteering at local shelters, starting after-school programs, trying to uplift others who felt powerless. John's expression shifted slightly, a spark of understanding flickering in his gaze. Emily pressed on, no longer just an eager maid, she was a warrior for change. I want to create opportunities for the kids of Glenwood. To give them the chance I never had the chance to dream freely and pursue those dreams without fear. She could feel the energy in the room crackle like static. Some guests shifted in their seats, their initial skepticism masked by an inkling of belief. Emily locked eyes with John, who was no longer a distant billionaire but a man potentially open to a new path. But change needs more than just good intentions, she admitted, lowering her voice to an intimate whisper. It needs people with power willing to take risks. I'm asking you, John, will you take a risk with me? The silence that enveloped them felt sacred, charged with possibility. But just as Emily began to envision the glimmers of hope, someone at the periphery of the crowd sneered, "What makes you think an idea without a plan can succeed?" Emily's heart sank, but she was ready. Plans are just blueprints, and they can change as we go. It's commitment and passion that can fuel a cause. John seemed momentarily lost in thought, weighing her words against the cold reality of his world. The flicker of doubt crossed his face again, but this time, it was more thoughtful than dismissive. He motioned for silence, then asked, "What do you need?" It felt like a spark igniting a drought-ridden field. Hope, that fragile thing, danced in Emily's chest. "I need support, financial, mentorship, and most importantly, a shared vision," she replied, her heart racing with optimism. "Together, we can create a chain reaction of change." Whispers erupted around them, a chorus of intrigue mixing with disbelief and excitement. The moment hung heavy in the air, and every eye was now fixed on John. He rubbed the stubble on his chin, lost in thought, and Emily held her breath, waiting for his answer. Would he embrace this chance? Or would he retreat into the safety of his privilege? Just then, the tension broke like a dam. "All right," John finally spoke, his voice steady yet uncertain. "But know this, Emily, if I get involved, I expect you to lead." Her heart soared. "I promise I will." But in that instant, a sudden chill swept through the room as another unexpected figure emerged from the shadows, a figure closely associated with John, who could shake everything she had built. "Hold on just a second," the stranger interjected, a smirk playing on their lips. "What happens when your idealism crumbles under pressure?" Emily felt a new wave of intensity wash over her. She couldn't let this opportunity slip away. Now she had to face not just the unknown but also those who would challenge her every step. The stakes had just risen even higher, and with the eyes of the elite and the weight of her community on her shoulders, she knew the road ahead would be anything but easy. The room seemed to freeze for a heartbeat. All eyes shifted to the stranger, a tall figure with slick back hair and an air of arrogance. The confidence radiating from him felt like a storm cloud blocking out Emily's moment of sunlight. "Idealism is cute," he said, his tone dismissive, "but it doesn't pay the bills or move the needle. What happens when your vision meets reality? Trust me, the world isn't that easy." Emily clenched her fists tightly. She took a breath, feeling the heat of frustration and anger flaring up inside her. But more importantly, she felt the weight of those she was fighting for, the kids in Glenwood, still struggling and dreaming. As if reading her thoughts, John stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "You're not making this easy, Marcus. Emily's intentions are genuine, something you might want to consider instead of scoffing at it." Emily appreciated his defense, but she knew this was her battle to fight. "If I may," she interjected, her voice gaining strength. "I'm not looking for easy. I know it won't be. My entire life has been filled with challenges that I chose to meet head-on. Just because I believe in something better for Glenwood doesn't mean I'm naive." The curious murmurs in the room rose again, a mix of disbelief and newfound respect. Emily felt hopeful, almost buoyed by that moment. But Marcus remained unfazed, a skeptical smirk plastered across his face. "Passion alone doesn't feed families. You'll need a foolproof plan. What will your first step be?" His tone grated on Emily, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had practiced this. She had thought through every angle, knowing challenges would arise. "The first step is engaging the community. I want to gather stories, understand their realities so we can create solutions that directly serve them. We can't impose ideas, we have to invite collaboration. Some in the audience nodded, clearly invested in what she was saying. But Marcus crossed his arms, clearly unconvinced. And what resources do you bring to the table, Miss Dreamer? Ideas without backing are just words floating on air. It's not just about ideas, John asserted, his eyes narrowing at Marcus. It's about purpose, about changing the narrative. People will rally behind someone who believes in them. The tension thickened, and Emily could sense she was losing some of the audience's initial intrigue. She needed to shift the energy again, reignite that spark of hope. I may not have a fortune or decades of experience in business, but I have lived through the struggles I want to solve. That gives me a perspective that most will never have. Her words hung heavily, like a weighty promise. Emily glanced around the room, searching for flickers of support, any hint that she was still connecting. And then she saw it, a woman near the back, her eyes shining with unshed tears. It fueled Emily's determination. People like me understand that it's not about making an easy buck. It's about creating hope and making real change, together, from the ground up. Marcus shifted his stance, but still held firm. You need more than inspiration, you need strategy. And without resources, everything you said means nothing. Emily's heartbeat quickened. He was right, but that didn't mean her vision was out of reach. How about this? Give me a chance to prove myself. I'll show you that passion and purpose can create an impact. I'll assemble a team, formulate a plan, and prepare to back it up with real data. But I need your support, John, and you, Marcus, if you're willing to step out of the shadow of doubt. Silence filled the room as everyone processed her words. Emily held her breath, feeling the weight of expectations upon her shoulders. And just then, another voice broke through, clear and unyielding. I want to help too. It was that same woman, stepping forward, courage written all over her face. I know what it's like, and I believe in what you're trying to do, Emily. An electric buzz spread through the crowd as more voices joined in. The tide was beginning to turn, and though the road ahead remained treacherous, for the first time, Emily could see a glimmer of possibility. As the group began to rally around her, Emily felt a crackling energy of change ignite, but she also sensed Marcus's sharp gaze still fixed on her, ready to throw down another challenge. What would this meeting of two worlds reveal? Would her new allies be enough to take this leap? And what new battle would she have to face to keep them? The moment of truth felt closer than ever. Emily could feel the momentum shifting in the room. It was like a wave, powerful and alive, washing over her. The woman who had spoken up looked familiar. She worked at one of the schools in Glenwood. Emily had seen her in the hallways, always bustling with a tireless energy, but today she wore a different expression, one of hope and determination. Thank you for stepping up, Emily said, her voice steadying. What is your name? Maria, the woman replied, her voice breaking slightly, but her stance was strong. I have ideas too. I know the families, the struggles. We need a way to connect resources with their needs. A thrill coursed through Emily. Here was someone who understood the heart of Glenwood. We can build a network, Emily said, enthusiasm infusing her words. Together, we can collect stories from families and hear what they truly need. We can foster connections, find volunteers, and even local businesses willing to contribute or mentor. The audience began to murmur, some nodding in agreement as if the air around them had changed. Even Marcus, with his skeptically raised eyebrow, was quiet, not dismissive now, but contemplative. A man from the back called out, I sell building supplies. I'd be willing to donate some materials if we can create a project for the kids. Count me in for food donations, another voice chimed in, this one belonging to a woman Emily recognized as part of the local food pantry. Suddenly, she could see a collective forming, a vibrant, pulsating heart of the community that had long been dormant, fueled by the voices of her newfound allies. Emily stood taller. This is just the beginning, she said, looking each person in the eye. If we can unite even just this small group, imagine what we can do with the whole community. Talk is cheap, but we need real strategies and numbers if we want Marcus and the others to believe, John reminded her, his face serious but warm. Emily nodded, feeling the weight of reality pressing in again. She needed to focus, to keep the energy alive without losing sight of the logistical side. You're right, John. I'll put together a meeting next week. Everyone interested can share their ideas, and we can start mapping out a plan. By collaborating, we'll have more than just words, we'll have concrete actions. But before she could get caught up in her own whirlwind, Marcus finally spoke up, breaking the renewed excitement. Do you really think you can pull this off? Bringing a community like Glenwood together isn't just a matter of talking. It requires grit, partnerships, and relentless effort. Grit is what I'm made of, Emily replied, her voice firm. And the people in this room? They're ready to put in that effort. Sure, there will be obstacles, and we might stumble, but we'll learn and adapt. I believe in creating relationships that last. I believe in everyone's chance to thrive. As she spoke, she felt the pulse of commitment from her new supporters. Inspiration crackled in the air, almost tangible. And then Marcus seemingly softened, almost imperceptibly. All right, Emily, he said, a slight smirk returning, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But if you fail, don't say I didn't warn you. Fair enough, Emily replied, her smile growing despite the weight of the challenge. I'll prove you wrong. The room buzzed with energy, voices overlapping as people began to discuss details, exchanging numbers, and forming connections. Hope rippled through the crowd, pulling Emily into its current. As the voices grew louder, she looked around and felt a kinship that had been missing in her life for far too long, but amid the revelry, a nagging thought remained. As they began to strategize, she couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus would be watching closely, ready to pounce on any misstep. Still, the stakes were clear, and the clock was ticking. What if things didn't go according to plan? Would she still have the strength to fight for Glenwood? She felt the weight of expectation settling back onto her, but a flicker of hope ignited inside her, pushing back against doubt, and then it hit her, reminder of the struggles that awaited them, a nagging doubt that she had only started to scratch the surface of what lay ahead. Just as she felt that flicker grow, the door swung open. A figure stepped in, this one carrying a sense of urgency and a worried look on their face. Emily. You need to see this. What news awaited her at that moment? Would it lay the groundwork for her plans or threaten everything she had just begun to build? Emily turned to face the newcomer, her heart racing. The dim light in the room felt suddenly heavier as the tension shifted. It was Chris, a local journalist and community volunteer. His hands trembled slightly, betraying his usual calm demeanor. What is it, Chris? She asked, her voice steady despite the unease that gripped her. There's been a strike at the factory, he said breathlessly. Workers are being laid off, families are going to be in serious trouble. They were just informed this morning. Each word cut through the room like a knife. The energy that had just bubbled over turned flat, faces dropping as the realization settled into the atmosphere. Emily's mind raced. The factory was the lifeblood of the community. If people lost their jobs, every effort to build their network might come crashing down. What do we do? Maria whispered, her earlier resolve faltering. Emily took a deep breath, forcing herself to think clearly. We have to act quickly, she said, her voice firmer than she felt. We can start by reaching out to the families affected. We need to hear their stories and understand their needs right now. If we can connect with them and offer support, food, resources, a listening ear, we can start to make a difference. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but she could feel doubt lingering. It was the weight of real-life challenges, pressing in on their vision. Do you really think we can help them? Marcus asked, his skepticism still evident. This isn't just about collecting stories. These are people's lives, their livelihoods. Emily met his gaze, feeling the weight of his words. I believe we can, she said, her heart pounding. We might not be able to solve it all overnight, but we can be there for them. Every small act of kindness counts. The room erupted with voices again, people wanting to contribute ideas on how to help. Excited suggestions for food drives, job workshops, and community outreach flew back and forth. Despite the grim news, hope began to spark anew, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. What if their plans fell apart before even starting? Chris interjected, trying to rally their spirits. I'll write a piece highlighting this crisis. If people outside our community see it, maybe we can attract more support. A little attention can go a long way. Emily felt the power of the media's potential, but mixed with her apprehension. What if the support didn't come? Let us split up into teams, she proposed. We can gather information, reach out to families, and start outlining how we can help. Maria, you know the schools. Maybe we can leverage those connections. As they split up to take on their tasks, Emily felt her heart thudding. Each step they took felt like a leap into the unknown, but with each passing moment, she sensed something raw and real being forged in the crucible of struggle. But as the members left the room, she felt Chris hovering behind her. Emily, he said softly. You know the stakes are higher than ever, right? Yeah, she replied, swallowing hard. But we can't back down now. We need to stand strong together. I just worry that you might be overwhelmed, he said sincerely. She felt the weight of his concern but brushed it aside. I won't let that happen. We've started something important, and I can't let fear stop us. Her resolve ignited once more. Yet, as gratitude flowed between her and Chris, she couldn't shake the thought, with every success, each spark of hope, came a new obstacle lurking on the horizon. Just then, a series of loud knocks echoed through the walls, making them all jump. What now? Emily whispered, her heart sinking. She opened the door to find a group of people, faces grim and tired. We heard about the layoffs, one of them said, voice trembling. We need help right now. Would this be the moment Emily had been waiting for, or the start of a challenge that could shake everything they were trying to build? The door swung wide, revealing a row of anxious faces. Emily felt a rush of compassion mixed with apprehension flood over her. These were the neighbors she had grown up with, friends who had always shared the same streets, the same struggles. Come in, please, Emily said, stepping aside to let them enter. The group hesitated then shuffled in, their steps heavy with the burden of their news. Thank you, an older man, Paul, said, his voice hoarse. He looked visibly shaken, the lines on his face etched deeper by worry. We heard what's happening. We're scared. We don't know what to do. Emily glanced at Chris, who stood just behind her, ready to provide support. She took a deep breath, trying to muster the strength she hoped was there. We will figure this out together, she assured them, her voice steady. But first, we really want to hear what you're experiencing. Your stories matter. They will help us help you. As they settled in, stories poured out. Each tale wove a tapestry of loss and fear, parents worried about tuition, workers wondering how to pay the bills. Emily listened, giving each person her full attention, even as tightness coiled in her chest. It was heartbreaking, yet she felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. Have you all thought about any immediate needs? Food? Childcare? She asked gently. There were murmurs of agreement, little heads nodding slowly. I can cook, one of the younger women, Lisa, said, her voice shaky but resolute. I can help organize meals if we can gather the supplies. That's a great start, Lisa. Emily replied, feeling relief mixed with inspiration. And just like that, ideas began to form in the room. Maybe we can do a community potluck. Another voice chimed in. If everyone brings a dish, we can share what we have. Or set up a garage sale, added a teenager, enthusiasm creeping into her tone. People could donate things they don't need, and we can use the money to help families in crisis. Wave after wave of ideas rolled in, each one more hopeful than the last. Emily felt the flicker of doubt begin to dim, the spirit of togetherness rising to the surface. As they spoke, she couldn't help but notice Chris quietly jotting down notes, his gaze shifting between the families and her. There was something deeper happening here, an unspoken connection binding everyone together in the moment, something that felt bigger than the sum of their fears and needs. But just as the conversation began to turn towards potential solutions, the sound of raising voices drifted from outside. The sounds of anger and impatience grew louder, a stark contrast to the warmth inside the room. "What's that?" Paul asked, his brow knitting in concern. Emily's heart raced again. "I don't know, but..." Suddenly, the door burst open, and a group of men from the factory strode in, sweat-stained shirts and faces filled with indignation. "We demand answers," the tallest one shouted. "We want to know why we're losing our jobs." The mood shifted in an instant, a storm gathering in the room. Emily glanced at Chris, uncertainty flashing in her eyes. This was escalating fast, and she felt the pressure mounting. "Wait!" she called out, raising her hands to calm the tension. "Let's talk about this." But the outburst hung heavy in the air, threatening to derail everything they had just built. Would they be able to come together and face the future, or were they about to fall apart? With emotions running high, Emily braced for the challenges about to unfold. What would it take to keep their collective hopes alive when everything seemed to be spiraling? Emily took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm brewing inside her. The faces of the factory workers were a mix of anger and desperation. How could she bridge this gap? They were all in the same boat, yet the tension felt like a chasm splitting them apart. "Everyone, please," she urged, her voice steady but kind. "I understand your anger. We're scared too. But let's talk it out. Let's find a way to work together." The men shifted, their expressions still hardened but curiosity flickering like a candle in the dark. She gestured for them to sit. "We're trying to come up with solutions, ways we can all support one another. Your voices matter. We want to hear what you really need." Paul, who had been silent since the workers entered, spoke up. "They're frightened. The factory isn't just their job, it's their lifeline. We need answers. We need to know what's happening." "I understand," Chris interjected, his tone calm but firm. "We can look into this together. Maybe we can reach out to the owners or union representatives. But right now, we need to come together as a community, a family." People glanced around the room, the tension slowly loosening its grip. Emily caught sight of Lisa, who now stood with determination. "What if we organize a meeting with the factory owners? We can voice our concerns. Demand clarity. It's our right." "Yes!" shouted another worker, and suddenly a ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. "Let's take a stand." Emily's heart swelled as she saw the spark of unity ignite. Together, they could draw strength from each other, share their fears, and turn them into a collective roar. But the anger still lingered, the uncertainty like a dark cloud overhead. What if they refused to listen? One of the factory workers warned, her voice trembling. What then? Emily stepped forward, her resolve hardening. Then we make them listen. We bring the community together. Show them that we are strong as one, that we won't back down. We can use this moment to advocate for ourselves. The energy shifted again, more hopeful now. Even the factory workers began to step closer to the idea of confrontation. The atmosphere buzzed with the possibility of joining forces, each person channeling their fear into purpose. Just then, an elderly woman who had been quietly observing spoke up. "When I was your age, we fought hard for better wages and working conditions. It wasn't easy, but we stood together. You can, too." Her words hung in the air, and everyone fell silent, the depth of the moment sinking in. Emily felt a collective deep breath, the weight of history and hope blending together. "Let's do this," Chris said, a proud smile on his face. If we start now, if we act together, we can demand what we deserve. The energy in the room surged. Plans began to unfold amidst excited chatter. Emily couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by a sense of belonging. They were building not just a plan but an unbreakable bond, but just as she felt the warmth of unity blossom, a loud crash sounded from outside. Emily and the others rushed to the window. A group of angry factory workers were confronting a man in a suit. The tension in the air thickened again, and her heart sank. How would this escalate? "Stay close," Emily whispered, her instincts screaming. "We can't let fear take hold again. We're stronger when we face this together." Would they hold on to their unity when faced with confrontation, or would their hopes shatter in the noise? Emily felt that they were on the precipice of something huge, but how far would they go to protect one another? The atmosphere crackled as Emily and the group pressed close to the window, their hearts in their throats. Outside, the confrontation boiled over, words flying like arrows. The man in the suit stood rigid, his arms crossed, while factory workers shouted for answers. Emily felt the familiar rush of determination pulse through her, but this time it was tinged with urgency. She turned to Chris and the others. "We can't just watch." Her voice was steady, filled with resolve. "We need to be there. They need to know we're united." "Right behind you, Emily," Chris said, stepping forward. Without another moment's hesitation, Emily led the way out the door and into the fray. The air was thick with tension and resentment, and she felt the eyes of the factory workers shift toward her like small lights in the darkness. It was time to channel everything they had worked for into a force for change. "Everyone, listen," she called, raising her voice above the chaos. The commotion slowly ebbed into stillness, curiosity replacing anger. "We all care about Glenwood. We are here to fight for our community, not just for jobs, but for our futures. Let's make our voices heard." The man in the suit shifted, surprise flickering across his features. "And what exactly are you proposing?" "We need to talk." Emily's heart raced, urgency fueling her every word. "Your decisions affect all of us, and we deserve answers now. We're ready to advocate for fair treatment not just for ourselves but for every family in this town." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. The anger was palpable, but so was their desire for a solution. Emily's words ignited sparks in the hearts of her neighbors, transforming fury into determination. The man continued to stand firm, but she sensed the tide shifting. He was beginning to realize he wasn't just facing a few disgruntled workers, he was confronting a community united by a shared purpose. "Let us set up a meeting," someone shouted from the back. "We need to voice our concerns together." "Yes." Emily encircled the crowd with her gaze. "Let us bring our stories, our struggles, and make them real for everyone to see. Together. If we advocate with our voices, they will listen." The workers' faces lit up, igniting a sense of hope and empowerment that spread like wildfire. Emily glanced at the man in the suit, and she could see the tension in his jaw start to ease. "Fine," he replied, a reluctant opening in his tone. "I'll arrange a meeting. But you're going to need more than just passion to sway anyone." It was a challenge, and Emily felt it explode inside her like a volcano waiting to erupt. "We're ready to show you what we can do," she replied, bold and unwavering. "Together we can create real change. We have stories and strategies, real lives at stake." As she spoke, Chris stood at her side, pulling out his notebook. "We're serious." His voice was calm but firm. "We'll bring numbers and testimonies that show the impact on families. We deserve to be heard." For the first time, the man in the suit's demeanor shifted, a flicker of respect easing across his features. "All right," he conceded, a thread of uncertainty woven into his voice. "Let us see what you've got." As the crowd erupted into cheers, the power of unity enveloped the space, their spirit roaring to life with newfound strength. For Emily, it was a moment that crystallized everything she had fought for. It stirred the heart of Glenwood and lit a beacon of hope, but little did she know, lurking in the shadows, Marcus was watching closely. The skepticism on his face remained, but she sensed a faint glimmer of curiosity beneath. He appeared intrigued, perhaps even inspired, as he cautiously walked forward. "You may have won this round, Emily," he said, lips curving into a shadow of a smile, "but the road ahead is daunting. Are you truly ready for this?" Emily met his gaze, heart racing but unwavering. "I am. The people of Glenwood have been underestimated for too long. We're ready to break through these barriers. With your help, we can make a difference." As the crowd gathered closer, they lifted their voices in agreement, a tapestry of hope woven through determination. Their fears became fuel, igniting a single goal, a community lifting itself toward the promise of a better tomorrow. The tension of the moment began to lift as relief washed over Emily's shoulders. For the first time, fear was replaced by confidence, and she could feel the dreams for her daughter, the future of Glenwood, swell in her chest. They weren't just individual stories, they were one powerful chorus demanding recognition. Together, they were unstoppable. Now, if you want to witness more inspiring transformations like Emily's, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button right now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this message. Your support makes all the difference. Comment below your feelings and reactions to this ending.